I imagine Ananias, when he heard those words and fell down dead, that put the fear of God into everyone who heard it. And you know, the rest of that text, and I am very relieved to have heard chuckles from you during that reading. Because I think in my study and interpretation, quite often these grand, intense gestures, these intense images are used to make a point. Now, one way to read the passage, like many churches do, is as if it's a piece of journalism. And it kind of does read like an eyewitness account of real, literal, historical events. Again, personally, for my own study, this isn't something I'm saying you need to agree with. I think it's a mistake, and sometimes a dangerous mistake, to read any sacred text as journalism, as historically factual or literal. An important factor in my perspective is that the roots of Christianity are Eastern. Christianity is an Eastern religion. Now, a moment to extend maybe some giggles. What I have asked Jeff to work with me on is to show a clear distinction between Eastern style storytelling and the Western European North American style that we tend to be accustomed to. And so we've got some clips from Indian cinema to share with you. When I've watched these things, like with family members, we get into this mode where we just let ourselves get sucked into it all. And like those things where they're spinning, where they just keep doing that, it's like they learned a new camera trick and they don't want to put the toy down. And we're like, okay, are they going to do it again? And then, we have little contests on who can get the number of spins right, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this, to us, feels like exaggeration, as non-factual. But more often than not, this style of storytelling is trying to get the point across. In many cultures, falling dead is not a medical condition, falling dead. It is a cultural consequence of being a liar, a cheat, someone who has brought shame upon themselves, their family, or their community. And this person is sometimes declared dead and cast out to survive if they can. Now, to some, this might seem like I'm trying to grasp for meaning from this passage in Acts of Ananias and Sapphira, which is a very dramatic passage where God appears to be a cold-blooded murderer because, after all Ananias and Sapphira did was lie about some money. But then again, shouldn't lying to people about anything, especially when breaking a sacred vow, shouldn't lying have real consequences? Now, not necessarily capital punishment or a death sentence, but shouldn't lying be treated as a serious violation of trust that requires accountability and steps towards reconciliation and restoration? And I think part of our North American distaste for what I believe is a cultural telling of a story that contains harsh accountability for lying is that we in North America are largely okay with it. We have different terms for the kind of lies that we tell. Some of the best ones emerge during tax season. Any tax attorneys in here? You didn't hear that. Or we get pulled over for speeding and we tell the officer our legitimate reasons for speeding. Sometimes when a leader we support is caught in a lie, we will sometimes shrug and say, whatever, everyone does it. At least our guy is better than the other guy. Now, some in leadership have made lying a foundational element of careers and political platforms and religious leadership. And it seems that there are many people that thrive on that. We read a passage like this one in Acts 5 and we think, well, what's the big deal? They lied about keeping some of their own money, whatever. No biggie. I think it should always be a big deal to lie. Many of us were taught that lying is wrong. Many of us teach that to our children, our grandchildren, nieces, nephews, students. And the imagery of death has been used to teach lessons, instill fear, and make a strong point for generations. And I learned during COVID lockdown, that the dramatic use of death imagery is not in the past. It is not just in Eastern storytelling or in Mexican telenovelas. I learned that the dramatic use of death imagery is alive and well in the United States among our own young people. I was stunned to hear some youths talking about their fear of dying in anticipation of listening to the upcoming Taylor Swift album titled 1989. Anyone know what I'm talking about? This is a real thing. A real thing. And one very popular entertainment outlet published an article about that time with the headline, quote, "Taylor Swift has caused a great number of people to die during her career," end quote. And here are some social media posts related to Tay-Tay's abilities as a mass murderer. So Luke Bailey posts, "What happened here? Where are the people? They are all literally dead. But why? They call it Taylor Swift Day." Kristen Harris posts, "Here lies Kristen Harris. Died October 27, 2014, due to an overdose of bliss from Taylor Swift's 1989 album. Hashtag RIP. Some Panda, this person's social media handle, writes, "Taylor Swift, are you going to come to my funeral? Because I'm dead. RIP me." And Maya posts, in all caps, "I'm getting my shovel from the shed right now to dig my own grave. I just died because 1989. Death by Tay-Tay is so powerful that even the dead get their own shovels and bury themselves. You know, the figurative and literary power of death has impact. So if you happen to know a younger person and they are talking about how they died after an event, or they're dying in anticipation of a thing, they're expressing how much they like it. It's weird, kids. Death grabs us by the shoulders, looks us in the eyes, and says, "Take this seriously." We might consider Swifties hyperbolic, but they are being very serious about how much her music means to them. Now, our text calls us today to take the act of lying, conspiracy, and deception with dead seriousness. Now, lying may not result in physical death, but lying is always deadly to one's personhood. Let me say that again. Lying may not result in physical death, but lying is always deadly to one's personhood. Now, Parkside is a wonderful exception to what I'm about to say, but most religious congregations and institutions demand that their LGBTQ plus children, members, and leaders lie about who they are in order to belong and maintain a good standing. A condition of belonging that demands individuals, friends, and family in the know chip away at the personhood of a beloved, with every lie told or truth untold to hide the beloved's full personhood, to conceal queerness. Now, there are times when safety is necessary, and preserving or supporting one's safety requires us to misdirect the gaze of those who seek to do harm. And it must be said that anyone who has found refuge in the closet is not there because they like it. But coming out into the open is sometimes too risky. And only the person knows when they are ready to emerge. Now, if you happen to be blessed to be a trusted ally, honor that role with the utmost reverence. As an ally, your job is to support, follow the lead, speak truth in private, and show up in solidarity in public. Lying is akin to death. And we, the broad we, church, religion, family, society, have demanded that our LGBTQ plus children, family, friends, community members lie about the fullness of their personhood in order to belong. This month, June, Pride Month, it's a time that calls us to move away from death and towards the fullness of life, to stop asking people to lie, stop asking people to bury parts of their fullness in order to be accepted. This church, Parkside, formally took an oath in the early 90s to become an open and affirming congregation in the United Church of Christ. Being open and affirming had been in practice for years before, but making a declaration, making a stance to be such a place is powerful. I want to invite the song leaders to come forward because we're going to sing a song before we get to We Shall Overcome. And this open and affirming declaration, you, members, friends, by virtue of belonging to this community, you have committed to being, not just in the month of June, but all year long, you have committed to being what Pride is all about, to be a presence that helps all people move away from death, move away from deception, move away from harm, and move towards life. This is what Pride is all about. Towards authenticity. This is what Pride is all about. Towards compassion and mercy for all living and non-living things. This is what Pride is about. Moving away from death and towards life. This is what Pride is all about. We sing now, lead us from death to life.